Okay, we are back. The last video we covered the why about functions. Now we are getting to the how, right? Now let us look at how a function looks like, right? This is the anatomy of a function. You have the def, which is the keyword for defining a function, and then you have the function name, right? That's the identifier. You provide some name to a function so that you can call it, just like you provide names to variables. Then you have within braces, you send a optional list of parameters. You don't have to send any parameters if the function is defined so. This function doesn't need any parameters, you can define it that way. But if you want some parameters and you want to work with some parameters, then you can take them here. Then you have the colon, right? We have seen colon before. Wherever we want to start a block, like the if block, the for loop and all that, it starts with a colon in Python, and the same thing happens for a function definition too. And then you have an indentation, right? So a block of code. These set statements form the body where the actual work happens, right? So the name to call it, the name is defined so that you can use it to call it later, right? Similarly, parameters, if you have to do something, the function wants to do something with it, and then you have the body which actually does the stuff, right? Let me do a few examples of code so that you can see this. And I'm going to do it right here. I'm just going to clear this up. Def, let us say I'm going to create a factor function. So if this will take a couple of parameters and find if it's a factor or not. That's our first function defined. So this function takes two parameters, right? And then you can see the indentation, right? It's a block of code, the body indentation. So this is the name, this is the definition, def keyword, the colon, the body, and this is a operator which you have not seen probably. It's called a mod operator. It allows us to find between these two. When you use mod, the dependent and divisor, it tells you if there is a remainder or not. And if remainder is 0, then obviously it's a factor. So that's what this function does. So you can give it any two numbers, first being dividend and second being divisor, and it will tell you whether the divisor is a factor of the dividend, right? Another function. This is a function which I have defined without any parameters, no parameters as you see, right? Rest of it is very similar. So now that we have defined a couple of functions, let us figure out how to call them, right? That is simple. You have done this many times before. Just call the function with a name. So I'm just telling you, and then you pass any arguments which you have to pass to it. And this is, I put it in the square brackets to say that some of them may not have. This is how you typically call a function. So we saw parameters. When you define the function, we call it arguments when we are calling it. So arguments refer to the data we, the caller, wants to send to the function. They correspond to the parameters present in the function definition. If the function is defined to accept two parameters, then we call the function, we send two parameters to it. This is a normal case and we will look at some special cases down the line. If a function definition does not specify any parameters, then no arguments need to be passed. But when you call a function, you still need to add the two parentheses, right? The braces. Let us actually call the functions which you define, right? So I'm going to call factor. I'm going to say 20, 10. Now this is a call. In this call, I am calling a function which has two parameters. So I am passing it two arguments. So that's a print which comes from within the code and then it returns a true. Function worked. Let us call the other function, right? That function also worked. We called it and hello there comes back. If I told you, if you miss this, let us say I missed giving the parameters, the actual function did not execute. What is shown to us is Python is telling us that this is actually a function. It did not execute it, it's just telling you this is a function, right? Just like any variable, if you just give its name, it will give its value or tell you what it is. This is telling you this is of a function called greeter and that object is displayed here, but the actual call did not happen. If you want to call it, you better add the parentheses. So you can define these functions in a file as well, right? And that's what you will typically do when you are doing development. When you are defining such functions, right, in files, use spaces and empty lines to make the code more readable wherever you need. Say for example, between two functions, a line in between is a very good idea, at least one line. So for writing very good clean code, there is a Python proposal called Pykidz, right? We have seen some of them before, but Pykidz is a very common one used and is used by all Python programmers. You can just search for it and check it out when you have the time. Now we'll get into some nuances of functions and calling them and all that, and that we'll do in the next video.